This week's lesson addresses APA documentation. Much of the content of it is very similar to the lesson on MLA documentation that you had in Week 9. As a review, any time that you use words or ideas from another source, whether it is a logo, a slogan, or an idea, you must cite it in order to avoid plagiarism, as discussed in the first weeks of class. Citations help readers go to the main source and evaluate its credibility for themselves, and it also gives credit to the original author or authors for their work. In APA format, you need to include both a parenthetical citation within the sentence that is in the text of the document you are writing, and give a references page entry at the end of the document. The reference page is the same as a works cited page in an MLA document. Reference formatting details can be found at apastyle.apa.org. Additionally, the same information is given in Purdue's online writing lab at owl.purdue.edu. For APA format, it is important that someone be able to locate your source if they wanted to, and there is a specified way to show where the source can be found. Any deviations from this format make it more difficult for a reader to return to your sources to validate them or to read more. It is important that you pay attention to even the smallest details, such as a period or an italicized font change. The course resources are there to assist you, which is why we covered the way to use them earlier in the course. Here you see the standards for paper submission. These are the same as for papers in MLA format. Use 20-pound white copy paper with black ink, again, not blue, dark purple, or gray. If you have to print your paper out in hard copy, please heed your instructor's preferences. Rarely do you use a title page in MLA formatted documents, but they are common in APA papers. If you do need to include one, there are examples given at apastyle.apa.org. Be sure to use the sample student paper as a guide rather than the sample professional paper. The format for these documents is provided at apastyle.apa.org. You will want to consult it prior to submitting any assignment that has to be completed according to the APA guidelines, even if you think that you know them well. Your first page should be a title page to identify the title of your work, your name, your affiliation such as the college or your employer, a right-aligned header with the page number, and any author's notes. Note that student papers should not include an author's note. There is an example of how this should look in the Paper Format Style Guideline at apastyle.apa.org. Please take special note to put the date in month, day, year format, wherein the month name is written out and the year uses the 4-digit format. There is a comma between the day and the year. This differs from MLA format. Small details such as that are important to follow when you have been given a standardized layout. The title should be centered and double-spaced, just like the rest of the document. Make sure that the title tells readers what to expect in your work, not just the topic it is about. Number your pages using your word processor's header-footer function. Do not manually type your page number on each page. This information is at the 1/2 inch point down on the right side of the page. The header function will do that for you and will adjust your page numbers accordingly. Double space the paper. If you are using Microsoft Word, the easiest way to do this is to select all of the text, hold down the Control key, then push the number 2. Do not hit a hard return after each line. Finally, make sure that your margins are 1 inch all the way around. Now that we have looked at the format of the document, let's look at the format of the citation. What does the citation look like within the paper? The purpose of the citation is to point a reader to the right source on the works cited page, but it is also important in APA format that the year is clearly seen. You may have to adjust what is in the citation if you have more than one document by the same author or more than one anonymous document with the same name as another one. Take a look here. These examples are the same as the ones from the MLA lesson, but the formats have been changed to APA style. You may want to pull them up and look at them side by side to compare them. Notice that you have a direct quote in the first example. The quotation marks end, then you have an open parenthesis, the page number of the quote, a closed parenthesis, then a period. The second and third examples on this slide show how a summary or a paraphrase should be documented. The first of those has a page number, while the second does not. The format of the parenthetical citation is the same, both in content and in placement. You can find many more examples at apastyle.apa.org with varying situations, such as what to do if you use the author's name within the sentence or if the source is an email. It additionally gives you information on how to cite something that more than one author has said. Note that if there is not an author given, you must use a shortened form of the work's title. If you have a direct quote that you are using that is at least 4 lines long, you must use what is called block format. In block format, there are no quotation marks, and the text is indented in from the left an additional ½ inch. If you are quoting a section of text that exceeds 2 paragraphs, you will need to indent your block quotation an additional 1 inch from the left margin. Here is an example of a block quote. Resources such as apastyle.apa.org and owl.purdue.edu give more explanation and examples for you to see. As you can find in the references section of the style guidelines at apastyle.apa.org, a book with only one author is included in your Works Cited page as you see here first on your screen. You give the last name of the author, comma, initial of the first name, period. The publisher follows, then a period. If you have more than one author, you place both names in last first order, then ampersand to separate them instead of the word and that would be found in MLA format. Remember that in MLA format you give the author's full first names and that you capitalize all words and titles except for articles, conjunctions, and short prepositions. This is not the case for either scenario in APA format. If you happen to have 2 or more items in your references that are by the same author, you need to list them in chronological order by the author. If 2 of them were written in the same year, use lowercase letters to label them. Both of these are different guidelines than you had for including them in MLA format. For sources that have more than one author or that otherwise deviate from these print examples, check apastyle.apa.org or owl.purdue.edu. A periodical entry is similar in its format to a book. You give the last name of the author, comma, initial of the first name, period, open parenthesis, year, comma, month written out, space, day of publication, end parenthesis. Then the title of the selection, the article, is given without quotation marks, and a period. The title of the publication is then italicized and followed by a comma, still in italics. Remember that for APA format, only the first word of the title and any proper nouns are capitalized. The volume number is next, then a comma. If the journal begins each issue on page 1, include the issue number. For example, 55.5 means volume 55, number 5. Finally, give the page numbers from the pages that the article appears on and a period. If this lesson is confusing to remember, all of the guidelines are available online. You do not have to memorize all of this information. You only need to make sure that you know where to go find it and how to follow it. Remember that we reminded you that your course resources will become your best friends when you are writing? Instances like this are the precise reason why. Websites are the most widely used sources by my students. Thankfully, APA format for websites is easier than the MLA format. The standard entry for a website in APA format provides the author, date, page title, name of website, then the URL, the entire web address. If there is not a date given, you must include the abbreviation ND in the parentheses. Also, if there is no author listed, move the article title forward to the beginning where the author's name was, then include the date, then the name of the site and the site address. Finally, if the cited source is, quote, unarchived and designed to change over time, end quote, it should include a retrieval date. APAstyle.apa.org provides examples of citations that include a retrieval date. Pay close and careful attention to our course resources for guidelines on citing more electronic sources. There are examples of ways to cite emails, articles from scholarly journals, online postings in a discussion board area, and more. Remember that in this class you cannot use a site like Wikipedia as a source, since it is an online encyclopedia and no serious research paper will use an encyclopedia or other tertiary document as a major source. Here are some more examples. Note that the second one gives a DOI number, a digital object identifier number. When you pull a record from a database, look for that number and record it. Many articles can be located by typing doi.org in the address bar of your internet browser, followed by a / and the article's DOI. For the references page in general, make sure that you do not cram all of the information together. The references page must start on its own separate sheet of paper. The word references should be typed in bold at the 1-inch mark from the top center. Its font should be the same as the rest of the paper, both in style and in size. Do not use all caps. Do not underline it. Put this page at the end of the document. Unless you have appendices, your references page should be the very last page of your paper. The whole page itself should be double-spaced, which means that you double-space before the first entry and between the entries. As you saw in the examples that I posted here, the entries are provided in hanging indent format. Basically, the entries all start touching the left margin at the 1-inch part, and then every additional line of text for that entry beyond the first will be indented 1 tab or about a 1/2 inch. Make sure that you alphabetize the entries by the author's last name and that you place the source entries in chronological order, starting with the oldest if you have more than one source from the same author. You do not number your entries. There is an example of a references page in its entirety at apastyle.apa.org. Use that example as a reference tool as you write your own references page. There are fellow students in this class who are more well-versed in using APA format and creating reference lists, so you may want to team up with them to verify your entries. In addition, there are tutors in the Learning Center who will be glad to sit down with you and answer your questions. They will even go through your papers and references page with you, all for free. Make sure that you take advantage of this service if you need it.